everybody, and welcome to the Labyrinth of Limitations. This is the beginning of a new series called Foundations. And the point here is we're going to go back to the basics. We're going to talk about improvisation, and we're going to talk about the concepts here, just the essential things. And I'm going to share with you a concept for a practice regimen that you can do every day, that you can build upon in various skill levels, getting better and better as you go, really knowing that you're going forward with your practice. So that's what we're working on. Some important things to know. There is an episode called Foundation Zero that gives an overview of this whole plan. And then there's a free PDF with that. But then there is a PDF you could purchase from my website for this episode. Has a lot more information than what I'm going to have time to go into here on YouTube. And along with that, on my Patreon, now at a certain tier and above, you'll see there, it'll show you, there is, I'm going to be posting a practice regimen series. I'm going to be sharing videos of every single example inside the 62-page PDF. It's more like a book for this episode. 62 pages, lots of time went into it. Charts, chord charts everywhere, sheet music, lots of cool diagrams, lots of dialogue explaining things, and a level 1 practice routine in 7 parts. So that's the basic things there. Those are the basic things. Oh, also there's a practice file that you can download. It's in the PDF. There's a link for a practice file you can import into the Labyrinth of Limitations app if you are using that. And that will allow you to interact with some of the material in a really nice way within the app, improvising and finding things. So there's lots of things happening. So join me on Patreon for the extra stuff where I'll go through everything that's in the book. But then we're going to get started here. We're going to talk about Barry Harris's beautiful creation theory and how that kind of sets the stage for everything we need to know. And I'll share a little bit of practicing. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but in the book, it goes through this exact same stuff, but in much more detail, and then more and more musical examples. So I recommend checking that out too. So let's get started. Before getting into the creation theory, it's important to know what the word polyphony means, polyphonic. It means more than one melody happening at the same time. That's how I'm using that word. That's the general definition. So a really, true polyphonic context would be like something like this. Passage from J.S. Bach. But we might be quite simple, just like, 1, 2, 3, Simple. This is Take the A Train. It could be just pretty simple comping. We're talking about all that type of stuff. So in the creation theory, then, you start with the chromatic scale, which is the universe. So we'll go from C to C. And that's the chromatic scale. Break it up into 2 parts. It's 2 whole tone scales. And that's C whole tone and C sharp whole tone. Those are the parents or grandparents of everything we're looking at within this theory. Now we got 3 full diminished 7th chords. And each one of these 3 chords comes from both of the whole tone scales. So here's one, here's another, and here's another. Because once I go here, I've returned to here because of the symmetry of things. It's the same pitches, just things have moved up a bit. So this diminished has a tritone from that whole tone and a tritone from that whole tone. So those are the 2 parents of this diminished. Now we're going to use 2 diminished chords to find a set of brothers and sisters for all the chords that we're going to use. So let's take C sharp diminished and C diminished. We're going to take 3 notes of one and 1 from another in order to create dominant 7ths and minor 6th chords, which is a thing. And then to go on after that, we'll take 2 notes of one and 2 notes of another to make dominant 7 flat 5s and major 6 chords. So here I'm taking this diminished. 3 notes of this one plus 1 note of this one means just lowering a note. There's a dominant 7th with the root in the bass. I'll lower the 3rd string, dominant 7th with the 3rd in the bass. Lower the 4th string, dominant 7th with the 5th in the bass. Lower the 2nd string, dominant 7th with the 7th in the bass. So going in order, root position, 3rd in the bass, 5th in the bass, 7th in the bass. And now I'm going to take that same diminished, I'm going to move up on the 5th string. This is a minor 6 chord. We could think of it as a minor 7 flat 5 or as a half diminished 7th chord, but we're going to call it minor 6 chords. This is a minor 6 chord with the 5th in the bass, minor 6 chord with the root in the bass, minor 6 chord with 6 in the bass, minor 6 chord with a 3rd in the bass. So going in order from root to 3rd to 5th to 6th, and we want to be practicing this way. 3rd, 5th, 6th, and then backwards, maybe root, 6th, 5th, 3rd. Now we need to know that there's a special connection between these. We'll explore later. That this minor 6 chord is connected to this dominant 7th. This minor 6 is connected to this minor 7th, dominant 7th. This minor 6 is connected to this dominant 7th. And this one is connected to this. That's the 6 and the 5 relationship. More about that later. But we're going to go on now. We're going to talk about dominant 7 flat 5s. Take our diminished, and we're going to take 2 non-adjacent notes. If you think of a diminished as having a root, a 3rd, a 5th, and a 7th, we'll take the root and the 5th, or the 3rd and the 7th. That's easy to find in a drop 2 or any diminished chord. You just find notes that are a tritone apart. This is a tritone here, and this is a tritone. So I can scoot this tritone down. I can scoot this tritone down. And those are my 2 versions of dominant 7 flat 5 chords. I could also go up for that matter, take these notes and move them up, and take these notes and move them up. All it does is reverse those 2 voicings. So in one hand I have this, and in the other hand I have this. It's the same shapes, just scooted up or down. That's all there is to it. Dominant 7 flat 5s. Finally, we have the major 6 that we need to learn. So that is by taking adjacent pairs. Root and 3rd for my diminished, or 3rd and 5th, or 5th and 7th, or 7th and root. So I'll take C and E, C sharp and E. So I find things that are a minor 3rd apart, or a major 6 apart, or a minor 10th apart. Those are adjacent members. So I'll move C sharp and E down, and that will be like that. That's a major 6 chord. So now I'm going to take E and G, move it down. That's a major 6 chord, 5th in the bass. This one was a 6th in the bass, 5th in the bass. Now I'm going to take my G and B flat, move them down, 3rd in the bass. Now I'm going to take what's left, C sharp and B flat, and I'm going to move those down, and that's a root in the bass. So I got root in the bass, I got a 3rd in the bass, I got a 5th in the bass, I got a 6th in the bass. And this is all of the chords we're dealing with. From that basic concept of the chromatic scale as a universe, breaks up into 2 whole tone scales. Then each of those whole tone scales are used to create the 3 diminished chords. 2 notes from one whole tone, 2 notes from another. It's like the DNA that's found in each one of these diminished. And then 2 pairs of diminished chords will create 4 dominant 7th chords, 4 minor 6 chords, 4 major 6 chords, and 2 dominant 7 flat 5 chords. And that's the full arena of what we're dealing with. Now, we said 2 diminished go to make each one of those, and we saw that. You grab notes from this diminished plus 1 note from this diminished, or notes from this diminished plus 1 note from this diminished, or 2 from this plus 2 from this, or this. You know, that's the way we done it. So there's always a 3rd diminished left over, and whatever chord that is, that will always be the off chord to form a scale of chords. So say if I take this and I move down to 2 notes from this diminished, well, now I have 1 more diminished down here. And that's the off chord that resolves to my C major 6. Parent diminished, C major 6, also has this parent diminished. There's the off chord. So like that. And the off chord is always going to have the same relationship to the root of the on chord. This is the root of C major 6. So I go, so it's major 7th is in the off chord, and then major 2nd is in the off chord, and then I got a sharp 5 is in the off chord. It can go up to the 6 of C major 6. And this is the major second in the off chord, going to the 3rd or to the root of C major 6. We string these together, we interleave them, and this is all in the more spelled out in the big book. But root position C major 6, a diminished, 3rd in the bass, diminished, 5th in the bass, diminished, and a 6th in the bass. Those are the same shapes I did when I did this whole thing where I found this stuff. All those I just put them in the scale, which we have in the book for you guys there. Now, we know about scale of chords. Let's look at those 4 scales of chords with one exercise from my beginning practice routine for you guys. So let's do that next. The level 1 practice routine is divided up into 7 parts, and that's an important thing I'm going to stick to this whole time. I see 7 fundamental skills that we need to get good at. They have funny names like pathfinding and summoning, but then there's borrowing, which you might have heard of. There is relative motion, which is the elevator sequence. There is substitution and transformation, and there's the chromatic scale. And we can practice these in little exercises that get more and more complex and in different musical contexts that we're going to get into. So we're going to look at pathfinding. And what that is like this. I have my C major 6 diminished scale, which I can play like this, but really it is just this. That's the scale. And the way I refer to these scale degrees is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but instead root, major 2nd, 3rd, perfect 4th, 5th, sharp 5, 6, major 7th, root. So I refer to the off chord as major 7th, major 2nd, perfect 4th, sharp 5, and I refer to the 6th chord as root, 3rd, 5th, 6th. It's fast to say these things, and they have meaning in the on-off chord way of C goes to the off chord, goes back to C, goes to the off chord. Okay? So now I can do this on any string. I can go root, 2nd, major 3rd, perfect 4th, 5th, sharp 5, 6, major 7th, root. Now, if I were doing the minor 6 diminished scale, it would be a little different. Root, major 2nd, minor 3rd. Okay? For that first part. But look at this. On the dominant 7th diminished, root, major 2nd, major 3rd. On the dominant 7 flat 5, root, major 2nd, major 3rd. So there's lots of similarities. And when I practice the path by itself, I get faster at seeing that type of stuff. So I want to practice this exercise. I'm going to go, and this is in the book, and it goes like this. I think major 6 diminished between root and 2nd. Now minor 6, 4 times. Dominant 7. Dominant 7 flat 5. Major 6, I'm between 2 and 3. Minor 6. Dominant 7. Dominant 7 flat 5. Major 6 between 3 and 4. Minor 6. Dominant 7th, dominant 7th flat 5, major 6, minor 6, dominant 7th, dominant 7 flat 5, major 6 from 5 to sharp 5, minor 6, dominant 7th, dominant 7 flat 5. Now I'm going to go from sharp 5 to 6 for major 6, also for minor 6. But sharp 5 to dominant 7, so dominant 7 flat 5 and dominant 7th. Now I'm going to go from 6 to major 7 and the major 6 and in the minor 6. But then I'm going to go dominant 7th to major 7th in both the dominant 7th and dominant 7th flat 5. Now I'm going from major 7th to root. This is minor 6, dominant 7th, dominant 7th flat 5. I want to think this, I want to say it out loud. You got to articulate these things so you get clear on it. But you start to notice things, like for example, going from 7, the major 7, to the root, and here's root, to the 2nd, so major 7 to root, to major 2nd, to the 3rd, to the 4th, is the same on 3 of the scales. At any given time, you usually have 3 of them that are all the same. But that whole path from the major 7th, Whoops. I could be playing major 6. Oh no, I lied. Yeah. I could be playing major 6. I could be playing dominant 7th, and I could be playing dominant 7 flat 5. For the minor 6, it would be like that. You see what I mean? And then from there's samenesses all over the place. Notice when we were here, between the 4 and the 5, it's the same for the major 6, the minor 6, the dominant 7th. It's the dominant 7 flat 5. And this is really important. To see these things. All these pretty guys, these pretty things, seeing how the notes sit with each other is going to be valuable everywhere. We have to path find, because that's what's happening everywhere when you're playing this stuff, elevate or anything. So that is one of the skills, and there's ways to go up the ladder with that, but that is a introductory skill. You can practice this like as an exercise in the same way as doing extensions or slurs or any other technical thing, but it's an improvisationally challenging thing that will go into playing beautifully as we build bigger examples. So I hope that this has been kind of a nice teaser. Like I said, there are going to be videos of everything that is in this 62-page book on the Patreon website. So that's going to be important to check out if you really want to see more of those. I'm going to be building here in other ways and sharing lots of things. Thanks for joining me. Really excited about this. And have fun with it all. Keep practicing.